when do you think Hamas are going to release what is left of the hostages? Do you think they're frightened to release them because of the way they've been treated?
No, they've released many hostages already.
They haven't released many hostages.
They have already. There's already been...
no, they haven't. There are at least 100 left.
I understand that, but that does not change the fact that they have already released many hostages in the past.
No, but his point was that they haven't released the women because they're worried that they've been raped and they're continually being raped, like the UN have said the other night.
All right, okay,
they've actually released many women as well, and that also has caught on.
Not the ones being raped, though. They don't want them coming out and saying that they've been raped. They probably may not ever get out.
Can we just, I want to try and get this whole thing sorted out. Can you promise then, if there is a ceasefire tomorrow, that Hamas will stop bombing Israel? Can you promise that will happen if there is a ceasefire? If there's going to be a ceasefire tomorrow?
Release the hostages.
Yeah, on what basis can I make a promise of any
I don't know. Everybody's asking countries like America and Britain, ceasefire now, so I'm asking you.
No, look, when it comes to a ceasefire, it's quite obvious what is the fundamental driving cause of this violence that has existed even before Hamas came into being. The fundamental reality is that as long as Israel controls millions of Palestinians and denies them their freedom, we're going to be stuck in a cycle in which violence is going to break out every once in a while until that fundamental driving cause is resolved.
So it's acceptable
with the ceasefire right now.
Okay, all right.
I think we can get a deal in which we exchange hostages.
Well, Hamas don't want a deal. They said they don't want a ceasefire. They want to do it again and again and again.
Shut up, or I'll have to get you to leave.
They don't want a ceasefire.
Sorry, he's a bit carried away because.
Well, I'm just saying what's happening. I mean, that's all.
Do you think then it was acceptable for Hamas to do what they did on October the 7th? Are you quite happy with that? What would you say about it?
Oh, look, I mean, obviously...
Are you quite happy with that? What would you say about it?
I'm actually trying to answer you, if you'd let me speak.
Good.
Had it been an attack exclusively on Israeli soldiers who are besieging Gaza and denying Palestinians freedom there may have been an argument for it being legitimate armed resistance. But because it also included an attack on Israeli civilians, that is completely indefensible and illegitimate, and therefore, I don't think anybody can actually defend that. Nonetheless, the scale of Israeli terrorism against Palestinians dwarfs anything that Hamas has ever done, including the October 7th attack. We've seen successive...
Sorry, but you are talking rubbish. You're talking rubbish. A terrorist organization that hides in hospitals, hides in schools, hides behind, and I have much sympathy for Palestinian people. They're being held in the middle while these miserable excuses for human beings actually shoot at troops who are trying to clear out the people who are causing trouble. And Israel would love to go back to being peaceful. But whilst it has people going, we want to see the end of Israel, from the river to the sea, and all of this, you're never going to get there. So why don't people start behaving?
If you think that Israel is interested in going back to being peaceful, then you've not been paying attention for the past several decades.
You could say the same about Hamas, couldn't you?
Hang on, just a minute. Don't you actually speak to me in that way. You are the most condescending people or person I've spoken to for a while. My friend Ash is Jewish. He gets picked on regularly. People actually seem to, well, let's talk
on Twitter, maybe.
How is that relevant exactly to anything?
It's relevant exactly because you go on and on about how the Jewish people are terrible and they do this terribly. They would do nothing if you got those idiots, Hamas, actually, to stop doing it. And people like you who call themselves political commentators, you're just a stirrer, to be honest. Yeah. But if you're a political commentator, why can't you get them to see the error of their ways?
I suppose if you have a head of lettuce inside your skull instead of a brain, you might infer that I'm attacking Jewish people right now. But you're a smart guy, James, and I know that you don't.
You know, you're finished. You're finished.
Speaking, quite frankly,
you've not mentioned the word genocide. You know, you've not mentioned. Do you think what's going on in Gaza is genocide?
I think Israel is engaged in genocidal violence. Absolutely. When you look, there's no denying it. They're starving hundreds of thousands.
There is a lot of denying it, isn't it? Because they could actually end the whole civilian population in about 5 days, couldn't they?
Don't be silly. I mean, it's terrible that people are being killed. It's terrible that people are dying.
Of any army.
To anything that the Israeli
It's the lowest proportion of any modern army of innocent people being killed.
What you have in Gaza is
You're just going to ignore that very relevant point that proves you're totally wrong.
Israeli officials have stated that what they're doing is an assault on the Palestinian civilian population.
Yeah, you're avoiding that point.
They haven't stated that at all. They haven't
with the Hamas figures, it's 1.5 or 2 to 1, which is unbelievable.
Netanyahu invoking the Amalek. quoting from the
just
Bible.
Let me ask a
using
question
genocidal
here, be quiet. Was it genocide when Britain bombed the hell out of Dresden? Was that genocide? Because the majority of people were not military.
Or even Iraq. We killed a lot more proportionally.
It certainly was a war crime. There's no question about that. It's indefensible and illegitimate. We have moved right now several decades since then in which we have laws of war, in which we avoid civilian
Terrorists don't obey laws of war.
But Israel do obey them. I mean, were Britain committing war crime in Iraq because they killed a lot more innocent people proportionately than Israel are doing?
No. Well, you're wrong about the proportion.
No, I'm not. I'm right. I'm bang on.
You're definitely not correct.
Definitely am correct.
Okay, hang on. What are the figures then? If you know the figures better, what are they?
Even using Hamas figures.
Here's the figure that I do know. The rate of the killing of Palestinian civilians in Gaza is unprecedented.
So you don't know what you're talking about.
The last time there has been a rate of killing of civilians that great, Rwanda was the last time that we've seen killing on that scale. That in the period of just several months, you've killed 12,000 children, when in the entire first year of
war is
Ukraine,
terrible. I'd like to see it stop tomorrow. Let's stop it tomorrow by people like you stirring it up. And if people like you stop stirring it up, we might get peace.
If you're interested in statistics, you'll pay attention to the fact that nearly 500 Ukrainian children were killed in Russia's entire first year of invading Ukraine. And here we have...
Yeah, but I'll tell you a statistic. All the people killed in Israel and between all the Arab nations since 1948 is the 6th monthly figure in Syria for the last decade. So where are all the people on the streets? Why aren't you talking about Syria? Where's all the protests about that? Why is it only about Israel, the Yemen, the Chinese, Uyghurs, 2 million Muslims? No one goes on about that, not even one march for them. But yet it's a weekly one.
Plenty of marches for them. Right now,
you're on your own then? You need to get a few people with you.
Right now, we happen to be in the midst of the slaughter of Gaza.
Oh, well, the Uyghurs not there now. Are the Uyghurs all right? They can hold a bit. They can just stay in a concentration camp a few more months. What about in Syria?
Syria, the civil war in Syria has tapered down.
Tell me,
and the massive
still a lot many more people are being killed there.
Taking place right now.
Tell
is
me,
happening in Gaza.
Yeah, right.
Many of us have spoken out against violence against civilians.
You're proving that you don't want peace. That's all you're proving. Let me ask you this: do you admit that Hamas are a terrorist organization?
Hamas has engaged in terrorism, and Israel has engaged in far greater terrorism. If you want to define any organization that has committed terrorism...
And do you really expect sympathy by saying stuff like that? Do you really think that helps the situation, going in the media and saying stuff like that?
Yes, speaking truth.
You're saying that Israel is a terrorist organization, are you?
Yes, the government of Israel and the Israeli military are terrorist organizations, and here's why. I can actually prove it to you.
Do you think Britain is a terrorist organization?
Can I finish my sentence? I can actually prove
it's my show. You get your right. Do you think that Britain is a terrorist organization?
The definition of terrorism is deliberately using violence against civilians.
Answer the question. Do you think Britain is a terrorist organization?
If there is ever... look, I'm not an expert on British history, but yes, you bring up an example...
So you're saying all wars are terrorists, they're done by terrorists, because always civilians
get hurt. It's all rubbish. Thank you, goodbye. Thank you for calling us.
Not very clever.
Shush you. I've had enough. You talk rubbish. You, people like you, are the reason why this goes on.
You're a clown.